Let's look back a bit, shall we? It's been a bruising few days for Labour, but the party's attempt to rally from the general election defeat is already underway.
Senior members are going to meet today to discuss the timetable for replacing Jeremy Corbyn as leader. That race actually looks likely to start officially on January the 7th.
Who will be running? What kind of contest should we expect? We're joined by two Labour MPs to help us answer some of those questions. Alison McGovern is here in the studio. Morning to you.
Morning.
Stephen Kinnock is in our London newsroom. Morning both. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Let's just take you back, if we can, briefly to that night, Alison McGovern. When did you realise the scale of the defeat?
Well, we always take activists to a local pub for a drink after polls close, and we were all waiting for the exit poll. And people were pretty upbeat. You know, we'd had the YouGov big poll beforehand saying we were closing the gap. And when that exit poll came in, it was like the floor had dropped out from under all of us. It just felt devastating. And, you know, whilst we've known that there were problems for some time, so in some ways it wasn't a shock, it was a devastating blow. And I think all of us who experienced that night will never, ever forget it.
So when you hear then over the weekend Jeremy Corbyn say that Labour won the argument, and yet you talking about how you felt when you saw the exit poll at 10 o'clock on the night of the election, how do you square those two things up?
Winning elections is about votes in the ballot box. And, you know, I don't regret we all have to take responsibility for what we did. And I think that the election campaign was a challenge for us in many ways. We have to now look forward, because I understand what Jeremy's saying, but winning elections is the thing that the Labour Party is for. And that is where our focus has to be now. We can't afford 5 years of Tory government in this country, but that is what we've got now.
Stephen Kinnock,
we have to move on. Before
we move on, Stephen Kinnock, if I can just ask you, you know, so much discussion between senior Labour MPs all over the papers, people at home, etc. And where does the blame lie for you? Was it Jeremy Corbyn's leadership? Was it what happened with Brexit? Was it spending plans, perhaps? Where? Or was it a mixture of all of those?
Yeah, I think the three main problems were weak and incompetent leadership, the decision to back a second referendum, which I think alienated our vote in leave voting areas, and the manifesto, frankly became a Christmas wish list. All three of those issues are interlinked. You can't really disentangle them, because they all, of course, played into the perception of Jeremy as a weak and incompetent leader. But there were many reasons for that. Also, the utter failure to apologise for anti-Semitism was deeply damaging. And I think it's really important that we have that process now of truth and reconciliation, but the truth has to come first. And that means people being very honest about what went wrong, so that we can define the question properly for this leadership contest that's coming. Because if you're not asking the right questions, you're not going to get the right answers.
Is that going to happen? Because, you know, in some ways what we seem to be seeing is a sort of blame game.
No, I think it's really important that we don't play a blame game, but we also have to be very honest and robust, because otherwise we're going to make the same mistakes have been made in the past, and we won't just end up with 5 years of Tory government. We could end up with 10, 15 or 20 years. And I think that would be so deeply damaging for our country. Let's think about you know, those people that come into my constituency surgery week in, week out, who have been desperately undermined by things like universal credit, like 4 million children living in poverty, like an explosion in homelessness, like a division between London and the southeast and the rest of the country that is greater than any other advanced industrialised country. I mean, these are things that this country cannot afford, and the Labour Party has to show the British people that we're listening, that we understand that they deserve better. And the first step there, I think, is to reconnect with the working class in our heartlands particularly. They've lent their votes to the Tories. We can win those votes back, but only if we're answering the questions that they're posing.
And of course, the question that comes out of that, Stephen Kinnock, is where next to go with regards to the leader, which I'll come back to you in a moment, because I want to put that to Alison McGovern. McGovern here in the studio with us as well, because there's been quite a few names mentioned already. I'll read you some of those. Keir Starmer, Rebecca Long-Bailey, Angela Rayner, Yvette Cooper, Lisa Nandy, Jess Phillips. Which one of those, I don't know whether you've decided yet.
I have not made my mind up. I think Stephen's right. I think that we've got to get the right question. So for me, that's about who has got the right ideas. This can't all just be about how bad the Tories are.
Does it need to be a woman?
I would like to have a woman.
Why?
Yes. I would like the Labour Party to elect a woman as its leader, because I think that we need to show that we understand that women have every capacity to lead our country. I mean, we've had great leaders of the Labour Party. I think we can have great leaders in the future. Many of the people who you've mentioned could fit that bill, but it's not just about the person, it's also about the ideas. Stephen and I have been banging on about the places outside London that need investment. We should make a positive case for the Labour Party in the future, not just, you know, bemoaning what the Tories have done to this country, bad though that is. We've got to have a positive view about where we're going as a country.
And Stephen Kinnock, have you made up your mind about, you know, they've got to unite the party, haven't they, as well, about the person you think it should be?
Either, although I agree with Alison, I think it would be excellent if the next leader were to be a woman. I think that there's three big points that the next leader needs to be making around the issue of security. First of all, national security. Labour is the party of NATO. We took this country into NATO. I'm very proud of the fact that the UK is a member of NATO, and it breaks my heart to think that there are people who've been in the armed forces all over the country who could not vote Labour because of this idea that we don't know who our allies are anymore. I think it's vital that we have a message on economic security. You can't have a manifesto which is a Christmas wish list. You actually have to show people that you understand that you've got to keep the public finances safe. And then I think there's something there about community and really localism, really letting local government have the powers that it needs and the budget that it needs. I think we need a radical approach to decentralisation and devolution in this country.
Sorry to interrupt you. We just missed the top of your first answer. Did you say you hadn't made up your mind?
I have not made up my mind. I think it would be very good if it were a woman. I think it needs to be somebody who answers those questions about security, and also understanding that London and the South East have got drifted away from the rest of the country. We need to catch up. We need to rebalance the British economy and regions. I
just want to come back to Alison McGovern on timing. Do you think it needs to happen now? Does Jeremy Corbyn...
It's happening now. I mean...
but we're hearing it might take months.
Well, the process, you know, you have to have a period where people can go around the country and talk to members and all of that. And, you know, that's not an immediate thing, but it is happening now. You know, we need a new leader in place so that they can take us into the local elections in May.
You, if you don't mind me saying, seem shocked. How are you feeling, just really briefly?
I'm devastated for all of our activists, and, you know, the idea of walking into Westminster with Boris Johnson able to do just as he pleases horrifies me.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Alison McGovern and also Stephen Kinnock, thank you both very much indeed for joining us here.